Brett, we know that 31 teams every year finish the season disappointed, but now that we've got a little time to kind of step back, and everybody was disappointed after the loss, but look back at what this team accomplished. Third straight AFC West division title, never happened in franchise history. Hosting the AFC Championship game for the first time in franchise history. Just what were your thoughts now that you have had a little time to reflect on what this team accomplished last season?
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, and having been here since 2013 and going to the playoffs 5 or 6 years, every team is different. Every team is unique in their own way, but it was a lot of fun because from the opening kickoff out in Los Angeles till the final snap at home in the AFC Championship game, we felt like we rolled a team out there that was one of the best in the league from start to finish. So we were really excited about that, and we certainly have set the bar high now. And the next step is to bring the Lamar Hunt Trophy home and get this team down in Miami for Super Bowl 53. So we're excited about that, and we're looking forward to the offseason.
Certainly saw these teams take a step forward, which is progress any way you look at it. And I couldn't help but think often about last year's combine. I think you're going to know where I'm going with this, but throughout the season, every time we'd see 15 scramble outside and make a huge play, I'd go back to the comments you made at the combine saying that Patrick Mahomes is one of the best players you had ever evaluated. At the time, it seemed like a big statement, but now it seemed like you knew something that everybody else didn't because you had a chance to see him at practice doing the scout team stuff, and a guy that you scouted heavily. Now that he won the MVP award, how do you kind of put a bow on his season? What stood out or what surprised you the most?
Well, look, he's the best player in football, and now it's other people saying it and not me, having a biased opinion toward one of our own. But, what a special year. He's a special player, and, we joked the other day when he was in the office. I said, 5,000 yards, 50 touchdown passes. What's the encore to that? And his first response was Super Bowl, and that kind of just sums him up. He'll have a lot of personal accolades and a lot of recognition, but he's in it to win a Super Bowl, and that's what we're all here to do: win a Super Bowl. And all the other stuff is great, but at the end of the day, if if you're not the team holding that Lombardi Trophy up, then the mission wasn't accomplished. So, and at the end of the day, we're really not worried about Pat changing because his ultimate goal is to win a Super Bowl.
Yeah, I think one of the great things, one of the most rewarding things about being around him is how good of a kid he is. That the face he puts on when he's doing interviews and you hear about taking pictures and all the autographs he was doing down in Atlanta, that's who he is, and he's that good of a person. But one of the other big pieces of news to come over the last month or so was the changes to defensive coordinator, bringing in Steve Spagnuolo. I know you've had a chance to spend a little time around him. Just what do you know about him? What do you like about the fit here?
Yeah, I had a chance to meet and work with Steve a little in Philadelphia or early on before we moved to New York, but I think the Kingdom is going to be really excited about Steve. He brings a lot of energy. He's very passionate about what he does. He's a teacher, he's a coach, and he brings a lot of experience too. You're talking about a guy that had a chance to be a defensive coordinator and beat an undefeated New England Patriot team when they're 18-0. Has had tremendous success as a coordinator, then went on and had the experience of being a head coach and then working his way back to New York. So, he's an Andy Reid type of guy. Obviously, he worked with Coach back in the day, and just super excited to really start to get to work with him and put the pieces together for this defense.
Interested in kind of changing to the roster building process, and I know we've spoken enough over the years that it's never ending. You guys are always doing something. I think this is one of the interesting times of the year because not only your staff, not only is your staff preparing for the draft, doing things like the Senior Bowl and putting grades together and watching tape and film, but your free agency plan, which is also coming up. You've got the Combine and then free agency right after that. Where are you at in the processes of just kind of putting both of those plans together?
Yeah, so I think every year we kind of work it the same way. Right around week 15 or 16 of the NFL season, we really started to grind the pro tape because obviously all of their games have been compiled, and we start working through that. And we do a draft board per se, just like for the free agents. We kind of rank guys, stack them, tier them. So once we get to the tail end of the season, we start doing that, and we work through our free agency board, all positions, both sides of football, including special teams, and then we take a step back. Once the Super Bowl finishes up, our college guys come in, and then we go through the same exact process on the college side. We work through our board, and we build our stacks on both sides of football. And then after that, there's a week off before the Combine. And so that allows us to take a step back and then kind of look at the two boards together and see, are we are we thin here in the draft, and we may have to attack free agency more aggressively in this particular area, or if free agency is thin, but the draft is deep, then we know that, hey, listen, we don't need to go in that direction because there's a lot of depth here, and we feel good about positioning ourselves to get a certain position. So really, they go hand in hand, and you can't have a good free agency without a good draft plan, and you can't have a good draft plan without a good free agency plan.
I know that there's big decisions every offseason with free agents and decisions you have to make, contracts or whatever it is. But one of the key guys, because he's coming off a career year, is D Ford. What did you like about what you saw from him last season, and what do you expect over the next few months with D moving forward?
Yeah, it's been great watching D's development, and really last season was a culmination of who we thought we were getting when we drafted him a few years ago, and D had some injuries, and there's a natural maturation process that goes along with being a professional football player. But I think last year was it was great to see D kind of put it all together, where he was able to come to camp healthy, stay healthy throughout the course of the season, and really just play at a dominant level at times, just attacking the quarterback, generating pressure, and certainly excited to get him back in the mix here as we move forward.
I know that looking at last year, and you've always talked about being aggressive, whether it's trading up in the draft, whether it's going after free agents you like. Now that you've been here a little while and you've had a couple off seasons, do you foresee that aggressive nature staying true and kind of attacking it the same way?
Yeah, I think that you have to really stay true to your convictions, and when you and the coaching staff are on the same page and you find guys you like. Typically, and we always say this about the draft, I mean, if you like a guy, be prepared to take him around earlier or X amount of picks earlier, because it's very hard, maybe not so much at the end of the draft or the undrafted free agents, but particularly the first few rounds, 2-3 rounds, if you like a guy, the chances are he's going to go before you pick. So you just have to be prepared, and you have to be willing to do what's necessary to get the players you want.
The NFL scouting combine coming up now, a lot of fans can sit back and they can see the measurements, they can watch the 40s and all those kinds of things that you can do from anywhere. But you guys being there in Indy, getting a chance to sit in front of the players, just what's your number one focus, something that you and your staff need to take away during that week that you're up there?
Well, I mean, it's certainly a critical week, and as you mentioned, the numbers are important. But when we go to the combine, we kind of know the player. Getting to know the person is a big deal. How they're going to fit in this locker room, how they're going to fit in our community, what type of competitor. And you'd be surprised the amount of information you get and the feel you get by spending 15, 20 minutes with a player and having them go through the board and test their knowledge and ask them about some of the things they've experienced, good and bad. You really get a good sense of who you're getting as a person, and I think that's vital to the process.
I know it's still early in the process as far as the draft, but as you put together the draft board and you give grades out, does anything stand out so far that's unique or that you like about this particular group of players available in this draft?
Well, every draft class is different, and right now we're, I think, day 8 of a 16-day process where we kind of go position by position. So we haven't finished up the entire board, but I think certainly the defensive line looks like it's going to be a good class. There's a lot of pass rushers, a lot of interior defensive linemen that kind of jump off the screen right away. So there's certainly depth there, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of depth at other positions. And like I said, we're day 7 or day 8, and we're kind of cranking through it. But it'll be exciting, and it'll also be exciting to have a 1 and 2 twos. Over the course of Coach and I being here since 13, a couple years without a 2, a couple years without a 3. Obviously the trade for Pat, no 1. So I'm not sure, but it could be one of the first times we have picks in the first, second, and third round. So we're looking forward to that and having a lot of fun with it.
I know that I can always tell when you guys you're in that 16-day period because you guys come into like the breaks or the lunch and you look like you've been just staring at dark rooms staring at tape all day.
I know.
But I want to ask the last question and last follow-up. Mock drafts, because media loves them, fans love them, everybody consumes them. Do you peek at them? Do you see like what media, like where they have guys going?
Oh, absolutely. I think everybody does. And I think if a GM said they don't, they don't do that, they'd be lying. Everyone kind of takes a peek at that from time to time, and it's a lot of fun. And our guys kind of play the same game. Really the way the draft works, once you get to round 3, teams value depth level players and situational starters, and obviously you want to draft all starters, but they're going to value things differently. But I think every team has a top 40, top 50 board. Like these players, regardless of a 34 or 43, regardless of what type of offense you're running, these are just good football players. They can fit any scheme. So yeah, we certainly do that, and most teams do. But our guys certainly have fun with that and try to see who can play Mel Kiper the best, I guess you'd say.